Hey guys, Mr. Studebaker here. Sergeant Pepper's in the shop. In this segment, we're going to go over a couple things. Axle carriers, cast iron housings versus aluminum housings, and a little inspection on the transmission, second gear. The second gear on these likes to pop out, and I want to find out why they pop out and what I can do to fix it. So the gear selector is already in second gear. You pull that off, and then we're going to have a look at second gear for the wear. That's second gear right here, and this is third gear. So we're going to mainly be looking at this guy and what it looks like. So the gears are looking pretty worn on this. Oh, I see something. Oh shit. Look at that. You see that? Look at this right here. That is a chipped gear. Uh-oh. Looks like that's got to be replaced because I do not want that to pop out of second gear. And now that I'm looking at this, and I'm going to show a view of it pulled out a little bit, you might be able to begin to understand why second gear pops out. Pull you out a little bit. So second gear is in the middle of the two bearings. I got a bearing here and a bearing over here supporting the shaft, and second gear is taking all the heat. So you can see that if this shaft flexes in any shape or form, this is going to go up from the pressure of the gears, and it may allow that to move back and forth. There's a few other things that need to be done too as far as these shifter forks go. Is they need to be welded on the side, and they need to be pinched in, and some strengthening ribs right in here and here. Okay, so we got that looked at. Now let's look at what's going on with the aluminum housing. This is also a C-clip. I removed the C-clips out of this. Cub Cadet, in their great wisdom, did something really cool. I've taken the caliper off on this. You can see the bolts on here. But what they did, which was really cool, as you might be able to see, is they put a hole in the axle flange. And that axle flange is right where the bolt is at. You see my finger in there? There's a bolt right in there. So all you gotta do is stick your 1/2-inch ratchet in there, your 1/2-inch socket, and buzz them off. I'll show you what that looks like right over here. We'll just drop that in there till it hits the nut. Pull it out a little bit till it hits. Pull the nut out. How cool is that, huh? So earlier in a couple of my segments ago, I was covering whether or not I liked this disc brake setup. There's a particular reason why I don't like this brake setup. Is because the way they designed it, and you'll see in a second. Let me just pull that off for you and I'll show you the differences. I have a version over here that I've taken off the Kaiser when I took them down to Ohio to give them a ride with the boys down there, and what I found out is these were brand new when I took them down there. Look how worn out that is. What happens is the mud and dirt sit right on top of this, because the way this is set up is it's set up right on top, so all the junk and stuff can sit right down in here and spin down into these. Now, it's nice that they put the holes in here, but I still don't think it's going to clear all the mud and stuff in there. And to seal this whole thing up might be a bit of a pain. So I might not do that. The C-clips are gone, so this axle pulls right out. That's a 32 spline. That is a massive shaft. This should pop off. Let's see. And this is the aluminum housing that I'm after. Oh shit, there's more oil in there than I thought. Yeah, you gotta make sure you get enough stuff down there. Hold on. I got a fix for that. Stop! Oh my goodness, that's a lot of stuff. I didn't think there was that much in there. I guess there's going to be more on the other side. That's got to come off too. So what's really cool about that, other than being a fine spline 32mm axle, is that the bearings are metric and the seals are metric. These seals are easy to get. They're very easy to get. Can you see the number on them? They're metric. I mean, it just fits right in there and away you go. It's a beautiful thing. Now, with the cast irons, those guys are 1 inch. 1 inch. The seals on those aren't metric. And when you're not metric, in a metric world for seals and bearings, that makes for big troubles. Those are hard to find and they're quite pricey. This guy should come off. I don't think these are held on by gaskets. Well, this one's by gasket. Check that out. Last one I took apart was held in by just glue alone. Go figure that. So the next segment, or next thing I got to do is take this. Take this off so I can get the carrier out. You probably don't really need to see that. I'm gonna run the film anyway, just to look. Maybe you want to, maybe you don't. Oh, that's a mess. I thought it was a mess last time. I'll do the other side. Well, this carrier should just pop out nice and easy. Once you get the carrier bearings out. Just like that. How easy is that? Once I set him over here, and get this other guy out. And set him on top of that. Now this should come right out. Presto, presto. All right, so let's go check out what's going on over here. I'll do a couple comparisons for you guys so you can see why this conversion's happening, what to look for, what not to look for. First we'll start with the carriers, point out the differences between them. You begin to already see that there's a big difference already. Pullers won't even use this guy. It is way too thin in this area and they snap right in here when they use them and they go like, yeah, it's enough of that business. Not to mention that the axle shafts are weak too. This guy, on the other hand, let me spin him all the way around for you. Look how big around he is. He's like beefy everywhere. There's not much flaws to this. But for the conversion to happen, this hypoid ring gear needs to go where the straight gear cut is. The rivets that are on here need to be drilled out, cut, hammered out, anything it takes to get them out without destroying the carrier or the ring gear, because you got to use them over on this guy. When that conversion happens, I will have more details for you as far as the bolts that you would use and what techniques you do to do what. I'll have a clip on that soon. The bearings on this is the same bearing that rolls on this. This bearing had to come out in order to get out of the cast housing. The next ones we're going to look at, this is, by the way, this is one of the big reasons why this happened. I thought at the time that switching over to the aluminum housings was going to lighten things up. I don't think that there's a big difference in the weight savings, because the carrier is heavier than the other one. The axles are beefier than the cast irons. It's all theirs. But left and rights of these, there's no such thing. Right can go on the left, left can go on the right. They're all the same as far as the aluminum housings go. The same height here, they're the same. I'll line them up, you can look at them. The biggest bonus to this particular setup is that it runs a metric bearing and it runs a metric seal. Those are easy to get. The bearing's like $8, the seal is like $3. You know, plus or minus a couple of dollars depending on where you pick them up and what you want to do with them. When this conversion happens, as you can see that they're both the same size, when I do the cast iron fit, cast iron has one skinny one and one fat one. The fat one, as far as this base goes, is the same as the aluminum ones. They bolt right in, they fit perfectly as perfect should be. The skinny one, on the other hand, you're going to run into problems. So what I had to do is I had to chalk this up in the mill, and I had to take off about an inch 163 thousandths on Kaiser's conversion when I did him, and I'll have to do the same to this. I'll show you the setup and how that happens in a couple days or next week when this whole process happens. I wanted to point out too that the cast iron guys have 1-inch seals, Imperial, 1-inch needle bearings. Those are hard to get. They're Imperial. If you ever had to look for standard straight bearings with bushings or seals, those are pretty hard to find and they're quite pricey to get. So I opted out as the next big option is these, because if I'm going to be blowing out seals all the time, which I think I fixed that problem, and I'll show you why, to stop my seal blowing out. With the 1-inch axles, the cast iron 1-inch axles, these aren't cast iron, but they go in the cast iron axle themselves, versus the 30mm axles. My problem is these studs were sticking up. You can see them sticking up a little bit. I'll bring them around so you can see it. When those are sticking up, what happens is grass likes to grab around these, and what they do is they wrap around the axle. When they wrap around the axle, there's enough of them that accumulate in there, they start rubbing on the inside of the seal, and they start throwing dirt in there, and then they tear the seal up. I started this seal out, and I had about 3 months on it, and it started leaking again, and I was like, what the heck? Why is that doing that? And then I figured it out, because I was always pulling the grass out in here, and then I went, oh, duh, dirt and stuff gets in there, and it tears them up, and then the seals go away. And trust me, pulling the seals out of this is not fun, because you have all that oil, which you have witnessed earlier. There's just oil everywhere. I don't really want to do that. That's a pain in the butt. So that's another big reason why these are going away. The seals are expensive, and these big beefy guys are going to stick around. Earlier this spring, I was running around with mud mowers from hell doing a trail ride over there. We ran into a mud hole. Unbeknownst to me, that they burnt a couple tires in there to make a little fire to burn their hot dogs on. Tires burnt down, all that was left was the steel rings, and they wrapped around the axle housing. What they did, is the way this thing sets up, is, as you can see, I got the clips on it. It ain't gonna happen. I'm not gonna show you. Is the aluminum housing goes deep down into this, and what happened is the steel wire just wrapped around the outer housing, and it did not go inside in here to destroy the seals. And from that point on, I was sold that this conversion is going to now happen for everything forward as far as what I can do when I build a tractor. The weight savings, it might be 2 or 3 pounds lighter, but if I leave the brake calipers off, that brake on this, that'll be another 8.5 pounds roughly, somewhere in that range. So I'm like looking at maybe a 10-pound savings, but 10 pounds is 10 pounds. Studebaker, out.